Welcome everyone to our third installment of the What's Good series. In this series, we will be taking a look at all the various inks in Lorcana, and today, let's discuss what's good with Emerald. Now, whether you agree or disagree with my takes, please let us know in the comments. Now, each ink in Lorcana comes with its own flavor. Ravensburger has described Emerald Glimmers as flexible, gifted with the ability to adapt to changing circumstances. They're never caught off guard. Quick thinking, but not necessarily book smart, they navigate their environment, whether physical or social, natural or artificial, with ease. We can see this flavor represented in the card mechanics in the various packages within Emerald and the various tricks that they employ. Leading us off is the Evasives package, rivaled only by Ruby in number. We have Peter Pan, who is the cheapest card with Natural Evasive, and a stat profile perfect for taking down enemy Pongos or Tinks. He is vulnerable to cannons or swords, however. Speaking of Pongos and Tinks, Tinkerbell has the exact same stats and cost as Pongo, an already good card, and an amazing ability on top. She's the only card that can give one of your characters evasive that isn't name or keyword dependent. Not only can this let you challenge pesky enemy evasive characters, but has a fun secondary feature. You can actually target an opposing character with Bodyguard to give it evasive and bypass it with your own non-evasive characters to get to whatever it's protecting. Niche, but a very nice tool to have. Then we come to our Genies. Genie on the job bouncing an opposing character can be a huge swing in your favor, especially with his 2 lore evasive stat line. Before we had all the cards in the set, Genie was an absolute monster. Genie Power Unleashed is an interesting character. He has an ability that sounds amazing, playing an action for free when he quests, on top of being a 3 lore evasive with Shift, but I really haven't seen him put to good use yet. Someone probably has a crazy Genie deck they're brewing up to release on us, but as we get more clutch actions and action triggers, his value is only going to rise. Next up is the Quest Denial package, one of my personal favorites. It's always fun telling your opponent what they can and can't do, and that's what this package is all about. Jasper stops an opposing character from questing next turn, while Mother Gothel prevents all opposing characters from questing while exerted, meaning your opponent has to deal with her before progressing their game. Iago can exert to give an opposing character reckless, meaning they can't quest and must challenge if able at the end of the opponent's turn. And John Silver gives reckless on play and when he quests. Of these, I prefer Jasper and John Silver. The 1 lore value Jasper gains over Iago is more valuable to me than forcing them to challenge, assuming your opponent can't have them sing or exert for an ability. Mother Gothel is just too slow and preventable. Not only does she require your opponent to have a wide board to really be effective and get the most value out of her, but she has to wait a turn before even getting access to her ability. And not only does she die to removal, but also bounce, and even Ruby LeFou or Fan the Flames leaves her ability moot. Captain Silver is just simply more reliable. Then we have Steal from the Rich, which doesn't prevent questing, but instead removes your opponent's lore for every character that quests after this card is played. It sounds great on paper, but being uninkable and unsingable makes it a big investment into your deck. When you have a big board, it can be devastating, but without a large board, it's simply a dead card. With the prevalence of Be Prepared in the game currently, big boards are few and far between, which makes this card very difficult to use effectively. Next up, we have what Emerald is probably most famous for, the No Touchy Package. This package is all about strong questers that punish your opponent for challenging and or removing them. Flynn and Mad Hatter both trigger whenever they are challenged, which resolves before damage is done, and provide card advantage. Flynn by forcing your opponent to discard, and Hatter by drawing you a card. Both are amazing cards, and Flynn is especially good as he is such a strong early game threat. When generating 2 lore and forcing discard are particularly nasty. Hatter, with his 3 lore, forces your opponent to find an answer. Cusco, Cruella, and Cat all focus on trading when they are banished in a challenge. Cruella is probably the worst of the bunch, with generating only 1 lore and bouncing instead of banishing. The ability to choose is a bit of a double edged sword for Cruella's ability. It means that she can bounce a bigger threat than what banished her, but is also stopped by Ward. Her big advantage is her 3 willpower on a 2 drop that makes removing her early annoying. Cat and Cusco both simply banish whatever banishes them in a challenge. It can be sequenced such that your opponent is using low power characters to remove them, or as with all of these abilities, denied via direct damage or street removal. Yet, Cat remains a strong early game lore generator, and denying removal is where Cusco really shines. With his 3 lore generation, no touchy, and most importantly, ward, it means that other than be prepared or a double swords, your opponent has to commit something to removing him. He's considered the strongest lore generator in the game right now. Then we have Prince Ali, who doesn't really fit in with the rest, but he does have Ward, denying your opponent's options to remove him. While his stats alone aren't worth much, the fact that he is a very consistent shift target for Ruby Aladdin makes him a strong addition to that color pair. Next up, we have the action package. Emerald has a lot of actions and action related triggers. Let's take a look at the actions themselves first. Mother Knows Best is a great piece of cheap removal, especially since it's a song. Similarly, Sudden Chill is a nice denial piece and can gain extra value when combined with Emerald's various bounce effects and action triggers. And it's also a song. Vicious Betrayal is a nice combat trick, but those don't seem to be too useful in the game as it stands right now. And while giving something reckless with Beast's Mind is a great denial tool, Emerald has better options attached to characters or simply with Mother's Knows Best. Stampede, behind me, is pure trash, and Do It Again lets you return an action from your discard, but it is inkless and can't be sung, making it tough to include in most decks. Similarly, Lady Tremaine has the same effect but is even more expensive, and while attached to a body, it is a very bad body for a 6 cost. I've seen some people play around with this card and using it to return Let It Goes and then singing it next turn, but other than that one little interaction, I haven't seen it put to good use. We've already talked about Genie, and Dr. Facilier's cards is Lantern for actions, letting you play them for 1 less cost, letting you get a little bit more value out of, an action heavy deck. Finally, we have the card that makes you want to build an action deck, which is Artful Rogue Mickey. Decent stats, decent lore, and a really cool ability that lets you stop chosen opposing character from questing next turn when you play an action. This is a really neat denial tool, and I want to see him work. But at the end of the day, characters generating lore wins you games, not actions. So hopefully in the future we can see this archetype develop fully as we get more actions and more action triggers, but right now it just doesn't seem very viable. And finally, we come to our miscellaneous package. We have a variety of vanillas with only a few worth mentioning. Hans is pretty incredible for vanilla. 3 lore is just so valuable in this game that he is an amazing threat. Baby Genie is a good shift target for Shift Genie, and Baby Tam is my vote for best art in the game because no other card had me flip out on seeing it and having my mind do cartwheels, imagining the character's entire life story, going from this drab little crab that we've seen for the first time to the big shiny Tamatoa that we all know and love. Megara and Stolen Scimitar are more combat tricks that just aren't very useful and constructed, but can be better in limited play. Finally, we have Beast Wolfsbane, who has a nice little combo with some steel cards, but overall is difficult to benefit from his secondary ability and is just a bit too expensive for an inkless 4/4 rusher, in my opinion. Well, that concludes this episode. Y'all know the deal. Like, subscribe, bell, check out the other videos in this series, and most definitely let me know what y'all think. What's good with Emerald?